So this is our last segment in this little mini series, and today I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about how we can best support ourselves when things maybe don't quite go to plan, when our best laid plans go a little bit wrong, or we're failing to get traction. Now, I mentioned a couple of days ago about how powerful some of our internal narratives can be, especially if you recognize that you're the kind of person that's got a rather healthy inner critic, that very loud voice sitting on your shoulder, basically telling you everything that you're doing wrong and what that means about your competence as a human being. And we spoke a little bit about how you might consider loosening some of that off and supporting yourself in the moment to keep things moving forward. But today I very specifically want to talk about how we can still do that even when something has actually not worked, something has gone wrong, or we have made a mistake, for example, because the reality is if you're trying new things, if you're trying to do something new, if you're trying to push yourself out of your comfort zone specifically, if you are trying to be a different, more enhanced version of yourself in any way whatsoever, the chances are there are going to be bits that don't quite go according to plan. And so how we nurture ourselves, how we speak to ourselves and support ourselves in these moments can be hugely powerful in terms of whether or not we are able to carry on. I mean, imagine this. You make a genuine misjudgment about the difficulty or complexity level of a change you want to put into place. And here I think I'll use an example that I quite often hear of people saying, I want to say yes to more things, which is a great aim. But saying yes to more things is infinitely more tricky, I think, than going to the gym more often. Because it really is talking about expanding an area of self rather than taking a set of new actions. And that can be infinitely more challenging. And it may very well be that actually you weren't fully aware of some of the complexities and difficulties of saying yes and what that was actually going to mean that you needed to learn to do. And then even when you were beginning your baby steps in terms of learning to say yes more often, for example, or speak up more often in meetings, maybe because it's not something with which you are very familiar, and therefore it's not something with which you are as accomplished as you might be other things, maybe it didn't go quite as smoothly or eloquently or whatever that might have been as you planned. Maybe you did say yes, but it turned out not to be the right thing to have said yes to, for example. How are you going to support yourself there so that you don't just give up and never try anything new ever again? Well, here it's going to come down to being able to minimize the cost, if you like, and meaning of what didn't go quite right, so it's kept in proportion. I tried this one thing which didn't quite go to plan, that is all, rather than the narratives version, especially if you've got a slightly catastrophizing narrative that the whole thing is a complete disaster and so are you and it will never ever work, so just don't do it ever again. What a complete and utter mess. So we are in fact talking here about minimizers. We're talking about little mantras, little things that you can learn to say for yourself that minimize the outcome. That is all is one of my absolute favorites. It didn't go quite to plan. That is all. It doesn't mean anything beyond the fact it didn't go to plan. I might be wise to go back and have a think about that. So it's one of my absolute favorites for just calming myself down and saying, that is all that happened. Maybe you've got a favorite too, something that really, really works for you. Another one of my favorites is yet. I can't do it yet. I haven't figured it out yet. This isn't working yet. And surprising though it might sound, simply finishing the sentence with the word yet rather than the word it isn't working, so working being the last word, is a powerful difference from an interpretive perspective. The brain hears the yet as meaning, but it will do in the future. There's something I haven't quite got, rather than a definitive, it is this. and the thing it is isn't good. So some of the language that we use can be very, very supportive to us in helping us keep an open mind about the future, and that we just haven't quite managed to accomplish something, change something, learn something yet, but we will. And it is a great example of how tiny little tweaks, those baby steps we were speaking about last time, can actually make a huge difference. Of course, a bigger piece of work is actually to ask yourself, what does making mistakes or not getting it right first time mean for you? Is there a great big list of judgmental things that will be concluded if you're not perfect all of the time? If that is the case, then it's just as well to be aware of that, because that is going to make it even more tricky for you. The stakes will be even higher when you try something new, and that being aware of the fact that you've got quite a perfectionist leaning, so that you can then look after yourself in those inevitable spaces where it wasn't quite perfect first time round, is going to be enormously helpful to you, and will hopefully mean that rather than listening to the inner narrative and thinking, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this, I quit, you'll actually be able to remind yourself either I'm not here yet, or it didn't go to plan. That is all. And I can learn from this. I can take something from it. I can pause. I can ask myself, was it everything that was a disaster, or was it just one small thing? I can learn and keep learning. And yes, I will get there in the end. So just a few thoughts to round us off. I really do hope that you found it helpful, and I hope that some of those minimizers might be just what you need to allow you to keep going.